Everyone, and welcome to another edition of Everyday Black History. Now, today on Everyday Black History, we're going to be highlighting a man by the name of Charles Brooks. Now, Charles Brooks was an inventor, an African American inventor, who is best known for his patented improvements to the street sweeper, which he received a patent for in 1896. Now, not a lot is known about his past life besides the fact that he was born in 1865 and he was born in Virginia. But his design for the street sweeper, as we mentioned, it was patented in 1896 on March 17th, made it much more time effective and less costly for the streets to be cleaned. Now, prior to his invention, streets were cleaned manually by workers picking up trash by hand and sweeping it with brooms. But Charles Brooks' invention was made with a truck with a series of broom-like brushes attached, which pushed trash and debris off onto the side of the road. Now, before his invention, as mentioned, it was either done manually or it was done by horse-drawn machines. And naturally, when his invention came about, some of the workers probably they actually resented it because they felt like they can do the job better, and like this machine would take away their employment. But as cities continued to grow, the use of the street sweeper became something that was too important. Now, Charles Brooks was an avid inventor, and as mentioned, he's best known for his street sweeper invention. Living in Newark, New Jersey at the time, Brooks decided to create a sort of broom or sweeper and attach this device to a truck. It's kind of like the street sweepers that we see a lot being used in cities to this very day. Now, his invention that he created, a truck had revolving brushes attached to the front fender, and the brushes were interchangeable with scrapers that could be used in the winter for snow removal as well. Now, if you can imagine the days where a man would have to manually sweep the streets with a long horizontal head broom, shovel, and dustpan, it can be painful to the back and it could take a whole lot longer. But this invention was a time saver and extremely economical, as we mentioned before. He also designed an improved refuse receptacle for storing the collected garbage and litter, and a wheel drive for the automatic turning of the brushes, and for powering a lifting mechanism for the scrapers. So the brushes would sweep the dirt in, and a belt would, carry the dirt into a receptacle that was designed as part of the truck, the street sweeper truck. So he designed all this, and the patent also shows the design and how it actually works. But he designed all this, and it's something that's were used from cities all over the country. It was so revolutionary at the time that some investors actually invested to have these built and mass produced rather. And the superintendent of Buffalo at the time loved the invention so much that he said that he was going to use it for his city back in the 1800s. And just to think that all this came from the mind of a black man who is not well known. And as far as we know, we don't know what kind of education that he might have received to invent something that was so complex. But now, this wasn't the only thing that he invented that was ahead of his time. He also patented an early paper punch, also called a ticket punch. And it was a ticket punch that he had built that had a built-in receptacle on one of the jars to collect the round pieces of waste paper and to prevent littering. He was the third person to design a hole punch, but his design looked similar to the handheld metal hole punches of today, the ones which make single holes and look like an oversized nail clipper with a wide-handed grip. But the fact that he built a waste holder to prevent a mess of round paper dots, the round paper dots that would fall on the floor, shows just how ahead of his time he was, because he was thinking about the litter that would be created from the mess, when you use those ticket punches. So we can see that his inventions, as mentioned, was way ahead of his time. They're still in wide use today. So we have Charles Brooks to thank for the street sweepers that help to keep our streets clean, and the paper punch that was used. You see him on Amtrak trains. I don't know if they still use him now, but they use him for many, many years in the past. Now, I have to mention that Charles Brooks wasn't the first person to invent the street sweeper. They were the first patent was in 1849, but his patent was for improvements to the street sweeper. Because as mentioned, the early street sweepers were used. They had horses that would pull them, horse-drawn machines. But he attached to the front of a truck, which made it much more useful and effective because you have the truck to propel forward and you can get more streets cleaned. So Charles Brooks, we thank you for your contribution to Black history and we salute you for it. So that concludes this episode of Everyday Black History. Please tune in again as we'll be highlighting more Black men and women and institutions that contributed to our culture and made life easier for everybody. So stay tuned.